Hello everyone, I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions. I'm here in Kensington, Calgary, and today I'd like to bring to you this sponsored video with CEO of DMG Blockchain Solutions, Dan Reitzik. Now, in this interview, myself and Dan talk about the SEC issuing their statement regarding online exchanges that are allowing for the exchange of any token that can be deemed a security, and that resulting in them having to register with the SEC. Now, is this a declaration of war on cryptocurrency by the SEC, or is it just blockchain growing up? We get into all that, and we also get into Dan's company and how it started. So we talk all about DMG Blockchain Solutions. Now, if you'd like more information on the company itself, you can head over to pureblockchainwealth.com/chain, and there is a full PDF profile of the company where you can learn all about them. But without further ado, let's get to my interview with CEO Dan Reitzik. Hello everyone, welcome to the BTC Sessions. Today I have a special guest. This is Dan Reitzik. He is the CEO of DMG Blockchain Solutions. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. I'm just going to dive right into it. We'll dive into your past and who you are momentarily, but there is some very interesting news just coming up in the past 24 hours, and that is the SEC made a statement that essentially any online cryptocurrency exchange that is dealing with a token that is deemed a security will have to register with the SEC. Do you have a reaction to this news?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, when I first got involved in this and people were talking about ICOs, they, in my opinion, were clearly securities. And I think that, you know, the SEC's job is to protect investors and consumers. And so, you know, while it goes against the culture of cryptocurrency as a diversified and distributed, you know, value currency, I do actually believe that some regulation in some form is required. If that's for Bitcoin itself, I don't see Bitcoin necessarily as a security. I see it as a transfer of value or as a store of value. But a lot of the ICOs I do see as securities. So I do think that there should be some regulation to protect consumers because, you know, and we saw that consumers and crypto investors weren't too happy about this news. But I think regulation is something, if we want crypto to go mainstream, it needs to be regulated in some form or another.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you very much see this as a sign that the blockchain and cryptocurrency space is just kind of coming into its own. It's maturing and drawing this kind of attention and the regulation that comes with it.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when I got involved in this, I haven't been involved in crypto for that long. It's been a couple of years, but you know, when I got involved in crypto, there were still, you know, quite a lot of hangover from Mt. Gox and things like that. We need to protect consumers, and you know, it's an evolution. If crypto always stayed sort of underground, I don't think it could flourish. And I think that, you know, things like, you know, when the SEC comes along and says we want to start regulating this, it actually provides some legitimacy for cryptocurrency as, you know, as a medium of exchange moving forward in life. It's something that needs to happen in order for it to actually evolve into something that people can put trust in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's interesting when you look at there was an absolute explosion of ICOs just in the past year, and looking back on the performance thus far, I think there was a recent report that said somewhere along the lines of 46% of all ICOs that launched in 2017 have already failed. And if you extend those numbers to the projects that have just stopped communicating with investors, or the ones that essentially have too small of a community to succeed, it's closer to 59%, I believe.
Yeah, you know, we made a decision early on. We have a very a strong Japanese part of our company or play in our company, we made a decision very early on that we weren't going to get involved in ICOs at all. And one of the reasons is because we recognized that there was going to be a lot of collapsing assets and a lot of, I'm not going to say dishonest ICOs, but I am going to say that it is something that we could see the writing on the wall. There isn't enough room for thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies. There's room for a few. And, that's why we're really focused on Bitcoin and Ethereum. There's not room for all these other ICOs. And so we knew investors would lose money and we didn't want to be tainted by that. So I think that the problem is we just talked about the SEC. If there was some more regulation with ICOs, then it wouldn't be 50-something% that have already collapsed. And I think that's what I was trying to get to, is that I like the freedom that cryptocurrency and blockchain provides, and the automation of trust that it provides. But I also recognize that consumers need to be protected. And so there needs to be a balance between, what the SEC wants to do as a heavy hand, but also, with in line with the sort of free nature of cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, and realistically, it's funny, the news that came out yesterday, it's not really new. I mean, we already knew that, especially any companies that are located in the US, any exchanges, if they're dealing with anything that is considered to be a security, they will have to deal with the SEC. And not only that, but a while back, there were many, I guess there were plenty of measures that you could take to determine whether or not a certain token would be considered a security. So, I mean, the news wasn't really news, but the market reacted very severely. Why do you think it reacted so harshly to something that we essentially already knew?
It's funny because I look at, we primarily are focused on Bitcoin. And I'll sort of get into that a little bit later. We mine Bitcoin on an industrial scale. And, it really is very volatile. The slightest bit of news will send it, bottoming out. And the slightest bit of good news will send it soaring. But it always seems to be higher lows every time there is a problem. But, getting back into the whole SEC and the whole exchanges and wallets and anything that basically is handling other people's money. We recently acquired a company called Blockseer, which has a risk API that's used by blockchain.info, the world's second largest wallet. And it basically puts a risk analysis on certain wallets. So there are technologies out there that I think you're going to see a little more to protect people when they're transacting. And as I said at the beginning, we're all great believers in cryptocurrency and blockchain and what it's going to do for the future, but it does need to be organized a little bit. It's a little bit too wild west. It's kind of like the internet of 1992. There will need to be some guidelines, and really just to protect consumers and to protect the brand. But I think you'll see Bitcoin will rise again in the next few days. It seems to have that pattern over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's Bitcoin can endure a lot, and it already has. Now, as far as I'll touch on one other point that I think is interesting when it comes to regulation, SEC, and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, if anything, the crypto community is resilient and can be resistant to these types of things. And so we've seen some interest, actually a lot of interest lately, starting to pop up around the idea of decentralized exchanges, which essentially allows for, I mean, in some instances, conversion of fiat to crypto, but really easily conversion of crypto to crypto, whether it be deemed a security or commodity or currency. That will just be facilitated in a very decentralized way that could be difficult to crack down on. Do you think the SEC pretty much has their work cut out for them there, or do you think they'll have to re-examine what they're doing? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to see all sorts of new technologies and new ideas as this matures, as this space matures. But I liken this. I was in the music industry back in the internet days, the .com days. And, you know, a big mistake that happened, a new technology comes out like Napster, for example, and it allows peer-to-peer sharing of music, which is basically what crypto is. And the music industry tried to stop it. They tried and tried and tried. They sued people. They shut people down. And really what happened was Apple came up and realized very quickly, and other, you know, marketplaces figured out very quickly, you need to embrace some technology change, because once it's hit a critical mass of people using it, you can't stop it. The population will determine what is going to happen in the future. So I'm seeing this right now with crypto is, you know, 2 years ago, I couldn't open a bank account in Canada for our Bitcoin mining operations. Now they're all wanting us to join them. And I'm seeing that the banks are not going to make the same mistake as the music industry. And I don't think the government is. The government had plenty of opportunities to shut down Bitcoin and regulate and all this other kind of stuff. But they're taking it a little bit slowly because they see that it has that groundswell. And they can't stop it. So some technology innovation, like what you were saying with decentralized exchanges, is a great idea. And I think that those will be tested, and ultimately consumers will decide what technology and what marketplaces they use. But a little bit of regulation, I think, is actually going to go a long way to helping our industry.
It also helps banks and regulators in a little bit save face, right? I mean, because you know, if something like Bitcoin that essentially at this point can't be shut down, if somebody whose job it would have been to shut something like that down realizes that, well, it's just here, we have to deal with it, saying that, oh, this is okay, but where we can get a handle on something, we will, at least allows them that moment of, well, I wasn't completely beaten kind of thing, I believe.
Yeah, you know, I don't think, I don't have a nefarious view of government. I think they're incompetent more than anything. And I like the fact that crypto is decentralized and it really isn't based on any competency. I mean, we in our company, we call blockchain, which is just the technology that makes crypto work, the automation of trust. We don't need to trust each other anymore. We don't need to trust a third party like a bank or a government, because machines do that for us. And so at the end of the day, I think that you're absolutely right. They can save a little bit of face. There is a middle ground between total regulation and total control and protecting consumers, I think, which is ultimately the most important part here, is protecting the consumers. Because if we as supporters and believers in the future of crypto and blockchain, if we think it's ever going to get anywhere, it's going to have to be trusted by the population as well.
Yeah. So I think perhaps regulate the companies and entities as opposed to the assets themselves may end up being what has to be done, because a lot of the assets, it's tough to do that too. So yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, you know, you're seeing a lot of companies that are in the crypto space that are, you know, now publicly traded. And in Canada, it's been quite a boom. And, you know, so it is coming into the mainstream. 2 years ago, that would have been unheard of. 3 years ago, that would have been absolutely unheard of. So it is something that is slowly being adopted. It's slowly being accepted by government, by banks, by, you know, the ones that tried to stop this in the first place. And as companies are public, you know, their information is all there for people to see. So, you know, you've got financial statements that are audited. I think it helps the industry in general. Yeah. Awesome.
So, Dan, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your company. So what is your background and how did you get into the blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency space?
Yeah. Well, I'm an entrepreneur. And so, you know, about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, I was asked to meet a guy by the name of Chris Filiatro, and he was in Japan, and he was supposedly this guru of Bitcoin. And remember, this is 5-6 years ago when Bitcoin was a few dollars. And I said, I don't understand this stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I actually didn't bother following up with that meeting. And about 2 years ago, I got a company came across my desk that was looking for financing, and it was a software that basically did analytics on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I didn't know much about it. So I reached out to this Chris guy in Japan, and I said, hey, Chris, have a look at this company, have a look at the software. Is this something that makes sense? And he said, yeah, it does actually. And so we both invested in the company and started selling the software in Japan. Well, it turns out that Chris has been telling people in Japan for the past 5-6 years to be buying Bitcoin. And he's the head of something called Bitmasters, which is a network group of tens of thousands of Japanese people that he's made very wealthy. And he says to me, he says, Dan, my network is buying millions of dollars of Bitcoin every week. Here's $1 million worth of mining equipment. Go figure out industrial mining in Canada. So I'm thinking, well, I'm smart enough to go and find the experts because this is not something that's simple to do on a massive scale. So at that point, I attracted Sheldon Bennett, who was with Bitfury for 4 years. Bitfury, the second largest Bitcoin mining company in the world. And he was responsible for setting up their largest facility in Calgary. So he joined the company, and then along with him came Steve Aliscu and Varun Gupta, all from Bitfury. And we realized very early on, and we started the small mine with half a megawatt in Edmonton, still generating a couple $100,000 a month. But we realized very early on that we wanted to create a diversified company. So when you have tens of thousands of Japanese people that are big believers in Bitcoin, they love the stuff, and they're saying, I want to make my own. What we do is we allow people to buy their own machine from us, pay us a monthly hosting fee, and then they receive all the Bitcoins every day. And so it allows us to scale very quickly without the huge capital cost. So in terms of Bitcoin mining, we do mining for ourselves and then mining on behalf of others, which we call mining as a service. But early on, I'm a big believer in mining, and it's very profitable right now if you do it on an industrial scale. The issue is that what really excited me was what makes it work, which is the blockchain technology. And crypto is really just the first application for blockchain technology. And at the end of the day, we realized that we wanted to build platforms. So in Canada, we have a software team that works with licensed producers to develop a blockchain-based supply chain management platform for the cannabis industry. So cannabis is a big deal here. We're legalizing it for recreational use in the summer, and the government needs a way to ensure 100% provenance of a product as it moves along the supply chain. Blockchain technology is perfect for that. So we also have a company down in the States called Blockseer that we recently acquired in Palo Alto. Their clients include blockchain.info, like I mentioned. And they can do risk analysis for transactions. So let's say, we talked about this earlier, some forms of regulation. Is if companies want to get into the mainstream and they want to start using Bitcoin as a payment mechanism for their customers, they need to know their customers. They have to have some sort of anti-money laundering, know your customer stuff. And most importantly, they don't want to be transacting with nefarious characters, people that are buying stuff on the dark web, things like that. So we actually have API platforms that payment companies can use that determines immediately if a wallet's ever been used on the dark web or it's ever been flagged for whatever reason. And it allows these companies to assure their shareholders and their bankers that they're doing what they can to make sure that there isn't total anonymity as to who they transact with. So that's our company in the States. And then finally, we have a forensics division. So, one challenge, the blockchain can't necessarily be hacked, but wallets and exchanges and everything else can be. So using our Blockseer platform, we can track where coins, if they're stolen, where they move, how they go through tumblers and everything else. Because people think that crypto is anonymous. It's not, it's pseudo-anonymous. The whole point of blockchain and the distributed ledgers, we can see every transaction that's ever occurred in history. So it's just a matter of how do you connect those dots. And so we work with law enforcement. We work with accounting firms that are trying to track, assets, but both on Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah. And I did want to touch a little bit on the forensics side of things, because a lot of people don't understand how it's possible to piece together who owns what, for instance, on the Bitcoin blockchain. But really, it's all data points, right? Like, so somebody buys Bitcoin on an exchange. Sure, you're registered there with a name and email and all kinds of identification, and then you send it out. And a lot of people think, okay, well, as soon as it's in my own wallet and I move it around, well, then that's it. But that's not necessarily the case, right? So you move it around, and then at some point down the line, it's bounced around 30 different wallets, but then it goes back into any other service where you have your name registered there. Well, that's a data point, and it stands to reason that you held that same Bitcoin through all of those hops up until that point. So you can always be pulling data points from the blockchain and painting a picture, a general picture of what you can be relatively sure as to who owns what for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, again, we're in the business of building trust in cryptocurrency, and that's kind of key for us. So, yeah, I mean, we see what wallets we can. I mean, that's the whole point of a distributed ledger, is that everybody has access to every transaction. So we can connect the dots in terms of wallets. What we don't have is names. So when it comes time to doing an investigation, and the Ministry of Finance in Japan is actually working with us right now to on an investigation. We can see the wallets, we can connect the dots there, but we can't see the names until that customer ends up viable information, like an exchange where they want to get it out into fiat currency. But you know, these are early days, and it's going to take some time for companies like ours and other companies that are in the forensics business to work this out. But you know, that's one of the reasons that we acquired Blockseer. Was this is a company with some great clients. They work with FBI, Homeland Security, and you know, it's led by. We don't know where this is going in the future, but what we do know is we know that it's going to be about talent, and you know, it's led by Danny Yang. Danny is the CEO. He's a Harvard graduate, a master's of physics, and a Stanford PhD in computer science and artificial intelligence. He still hosts the weekly Stanford blockchain meetings. You know, his partner is Tim Feller, who left Uber. He was one of the data scientists that created flex pricing. These are big data guys. In fact, he has a PhD from Harvard, and his PhD is data science. So it's collecting all this data and figuring out what to do with it and how to make it relevant. But yeah, cryptocurrency is pseudo-anonymous. Eventually, you know, we can figure out who it is that stole that crypto. Yeah, I mean, as I said before, when we first started, we started with a small facility, a 0.5 megawatt, which powers about 300 individual miners. But because Sheldon comes from, you know, Bitfury and having set up large scale industrial mining, and because we have our Japanese customers that are looking for as much mining as we can give them, we decided to go and build what I believe is the largest mining facility in North America. It's 85 megawatts, you know, which I'm not a power guy, but when I'm sitting with our power company and our utility and I'm asking them, can you guys, you know, speed this along a little bit? Our clients would like to get energized as soon as possible. They simply looked at me and they said, you know what, Dan, you realize that we're bringing into a 50,000 square foot building enough power to power a city of 100,000 people. And that's when I realized this is very complicated. And so, you know, everything that we do in that facility is custom designed, whether it's the power distribution channels, the hot and air flows, everything is custom designed. So there's that facility. There's also 2 additional facilities that we'll be building afterwards, both of which are, or each of which are 40 megawatts. And, you know, we talk about this a lot, and people ask, well, why Canada? 80% of crypto and Bitcoin mining is done in China, and China is essentially nationalizing Bitcoin mining. So I've had groups show up at my office. I have a group coming in tomorrow. These represent Chinese miners with 10, 20, 30,000 machines, and they're trying to get them out of China. And so Canada represents it's kind of a perfect place for crypto mining, and there's a couple of reasons why. You know, one reason is we have rule of law. So no one's going to come in and take your machines. Whereas China, Russia, these places, that's what's happening. Secondly, we have a culture in Canada, an investment culture of prospecting and traditional mining for gold and silver and everything else. So people kind of understand it. But what's important about that is it's not just about cheap power. It's about access to large amounts of power. And when you think about how Canada was built, and it was built on forestry and pulp and paper mills, gold mines, diamond mines. The mines were there years ago in these small communities, and the industry may have left, but the infrastructure of power is still there. And so that allows us to find pockets of the country that have the access to the amounts of power that we're looking for. But I will make a statement right now, and I believe that Canada, this time next year, Canada will be the capital of crypto mining in the world.
Wow, bold claim.
Wow, we're seeing a massive exodus from China right now.
Dan, where can people find your company, where you listed, all of that stuff?
Yeah, well, we're at DMGBlockchain.com. But you can also find our company shares trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange under symbol DMGI, and in the US, DMGGF.
There's a PDF that they can get. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
pureblockchainwealth.com/chain. And what will people find when they download that?
Well, they're going to see some information. I mean, what's really important about DMG is that we're very diversified. So we have our mining for the company. We have our mining on an industrial scale for third parties. And by the way, we're sold out right now of our mining as a service. But coming June, we're going to be energizing a whole bunch more. So if people are actually interested in making their own Bitcoin with us, providing that service, they can find information on that at dmgblockchain.com. But the diversification is important. So we do the mining as a service. We have real customers in terms of our software platforms on blockchain. And then we obviously have our forensics division as well. So we really want it to be a diversified Bitcoin and blockchain company.
Now, Dan, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on. It was really interesting talking with you about the whole SEC thing and learning about your company a little bit. So thanks for joining me on the BTC Sessions.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.
You too.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, drop a tip if you're able to, and share this video. Also, if you'd like to help the show in another way, you can hit my affiliate link down below to grab yourself a hardware wallet to store your cryptocurrency. And if you'd like more information on Dan's company, DMG Blockchain Solutions, you can head over to pureblockchainwealth.com/chain to download a full PDF on their company and what they do. Links are down below. I will see you guys next time on the BTC Sessions.